Welcome to the Wrestling with Success podcast. In this show, you'll learn how to use lessons used in sports so you can use failure as your secret weapon for success and succeed in the real world. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, husband, father, adventure seeker, and entrepreneur, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Success. Today I bring you Anthony Trucks. Before I bring on my guest, I need to share something important. For years, I struggled to feel confident around the type of people that I spend much of my time with. Successful people, millionaires, CEOs, leaders. And part of it was mindset. But part of it also was how I looked. You know, they say look good, feel good, as the saying goes. And I didn't look good. I didn't have clothes that made me feel confident. So I started buying expensive shirts. Then I had to get them tailored fit to me, my body, my athletic build. And then I discovered a new shirt. It's not only designed by athletes for athletes, but it's designed to fit an athlete's body type. And it's made of athletic material. It's like putting on your favorite workout shirt. But it's a business shirt. It's machine washable. It's wrinkle free, which is a deal breaker for me. I hate high maintenance clothing. And it looks better than the expensive shirts that I used to buy, and it even costs a little bit less. So I feel more confident now that I'm wearing good looking, well fitted clothing that's designed to fit me, to fit athletes. If you want to see it, I actually shot a quick short video of me opening my second shirt. Yes, I got a second shirt and I'm going to be buying more to show you the fabric and the fit. Just go to JimHarshawJr.com, grab the coupon code, and take a look for yourself. You can actually try one totally risk-free because it's free shipping for my listeners with that special discount code at JimHarshawJr.com/shirt. And returns, exchanges, 100% free within 30 days. So there's absolutely no risk to try one out. Again, JimHarshawJr.com/shirt. This is my first time modeling clothing, so don't laugh. The shirt's awesome, but my modeling skills, not so much. It's probably worth checking out the page just to see my bad modeling. Again, JimHarshawJr.com/shirt. His clients refer to him as Truck Stop. It was a nickname he earned while playing college in NFL football because he attacked people and he hit them so hard that they were stopped in their tracks, but he just kept moving. The name stuck because that's now the way he attacks his life. He attacks it head on, and he just won't stop. And it's ironic because he spent the first 14 years of his life being told that he was worthless and he would never amount to anything while experiencing hell in foster care. Anthony was the first and only one in his family to earn a college degree. He married his high school sweetheart, played in the NFL, built and run his own successful business, and he's trained thousands of people ranging from professional athletes to stay-at-home moms to get healthy and to get strong. He's now an author, a consultant for billion-dollar-a-year companies. He's a father of 3, and he speaks across the globe to help people change their lives. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, appreciate you having me, man. I sound like a cool guy right now.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Let's. I think you're going to back it up here. So let's check it out.
I'll try.
So tell us about your upbringing. Give us a little bit of background.
Oh man, my upbringing, it sucked, to be honest. I mean, and I think sucks is an understatement. It's one of those things where I'm not happy that everything happened, but I appreciate that it happened. And I think there's always a saying I live with at this point in my life now is a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor. And so a lot of these things, like for me, my first memory of life was my mom giving me away to foster care, me and my 3 siblings. And my first kind of issuance into the world was being told that you're worthless. I don't love you. I don't care about you. Like, you're not good enough to be here. So at 6 years old, actually it was at 3 years old, this took place. By 6 years old, I'd bounced around from foster home to foster home. I felt like, honestly, I'd been beaten and starved and tortured. And so by 6 years old, I was a very balled up, unhappy, kind of crazy kid. And I feel like a lot of people, we all get to those moments of life where we feel like we're not smart enough, not good enough, not worthy. I watched your TED Talk, and I know you very, very well can kind of tie into the same concept of that failure. And sometimes it's not your fault, I guess, for me at that point. And got to the point where I progressed up to, this finally to be in a house where it felt like it was my normal house. At 6 years old, I was dropped off at this family. It's my family still to this day. And for 8 years of my life, I had a lot of ups and downs. I couldn't play sports. I had no outlets. At school, I'd get in trouble all the time because I was just acting out. I had nothing to kind of calm me down. At home, I had my first foster dad who was a drunk, used to beat my mom. And we were a poor family. We had mice in the pantry, roaches in the garage. I used to get clothes out of this weird black garbage bag that my clothes would be so wrinkled you couldn't see the logos on it. Like, it was just a really bad upbringing. At 14 years old, my mom had remarried and life was getting good. But the problem is, as life gets better, knowing it could be all stripped away because I'm still a foster kid got scary. And so I had these weird internal battles of, I want to embrace this, but I can't. And at 14 years old, I finally got up in front of a judge and severed my parental rights with my biological mom, was able to be adopted. So for the first time, pretty much since I can remember in my life, it was at 14 that I knew tomorrow would be the place I'd lay my head. And I got to this point where at 14, I could play football for the first time in my life. And I fell in love with it. Like, I could run, I could jump, I was cheered. Like, the best part, I could hit people and not get in trouble. Like, that was cool. and they get to this point where everybody gets here too. I know we all do. I love this thing. I loved the game of football. I loved, everything moving in my life, but I wasn't having success. And whether that happens in somebody's business or in their relationship or in their health or in their career, we get to a point where something we love so much becomes this thing that almost is a burden. And I got there after 2 years of playing football. And I remember sitting in this room in an English class. My adoptive mom had gotten diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and so she's just sick, and my dad spent a lot of time with her. My older foster brother went off to the military, so I was kind of on my lonesome, and I was doing bad in football. And so this thing I loved, I was about to give up and chalk up. My dream was about to die. And this girl sitting next to me shifts everything about me, and she didn't even know she was doing it. She's sitting next to me, and the statement she makes to her friend, having no idea I'm listening, is, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. And as simple as a statement as it was like, this is a statement that for a lot of people condemns their life. And I found out recently that statistically 75% of prison inmates in America are former foster kids, like 75%. Wow. 2% ever graduate college. Like, it's just, the numbers are staggering.
2% of foster children
ever graduate college. Wow. Yeah. And so for me, I'm not supposed to do well, but that statement gave me like this angry confusion of like, I don't want to sound like that. Like, who wants to actually be like 30, 40 years later, look at life and be like, oh, the reason I'm a criminal or I'm in jail is because, I was in foster care. Like, that's just not. So I went back home and I said, I'm going to be great. I had no clue what great meant, except for at 15, get a girl's phone number or football. So for me, it was like, I'm going to be great at football. And I learned to grind. And this is where this statement rose that I live with now is, I realized after I went home that year and just worked, I was doing push-ups every day and sit-ups and bicep curls and everything. I didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to work so that when I came back the next year, I would be better. And I did that. And I honestly had no clue I could get better. But when I showed up the next year, I was faster, I was stronger, I was just a hungrier athlete. And it led to me being able to be a sophomore, moved to varsity. I got a college football scholarship to the University of Oregon, got a chance to play in the NFL for a couple of years. I then opened a gym business after that, and I consulted, and I've traveled the world and spoke. I'm in books. And now it's like, where did it all come from is the question. People are like, how'd you do that? And what I realized was I learned it at that single year when I came back. And what I learned was, if you want something, and this is so logical and so common sense that most people forget about it, if you want it, you have to work at it. We know this. Everybody knows this. But then, like, why don't we work? And what I realize is people just don't trust in their ability to succeed. They don't think they can. And so when they know they have to work, it's like saying, well, as a mountain in front of me, if I know I can't reach that mountain, or I don't feel like I can, am I going to take the first step? No. And so what I realized was that year I learned to develop trust in myself, trust in my work ethic, trust my hustle. And the statement that lives in me that I embody in everything I do and I share in my company and how I coach people is trust your hustle. You've got to get to this point of trusting whatever is inside of you now. As much as we hear like everything you need's inside of you, and it sounds very cliche, it really is. People just don't trust it. And it's kind of like this thing I learned when I was training people at the gym. They'd always come in and say, Ant-Man, I can't do that workout. I'm not that strong. I can't go that hard. I'm not going to be able to finish that. Oh, yeah? Okay. And we get to the workout. I'm like, let's get it done. We start doing it, and I just push them a little bit. Next thing you know, they got that weight. They hit that set. They ran that distance. They got a better time than they thought they ever could. I'm like, oh, crap, I got this. I'm like, yeah, you do. And I think today's society, so much of our society is built around this concept of you're broken, you need this. Even marketing, you're not good enough until you have this nice new car. So my thing is I want people to be content with themselves first, learn to work from you and your trust, develop that muscle of trust, and then put that forth into your hustle. And now you can have the life you want when you earn it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you just got to find one reason why you can. There's a million reasons out there why you can't.
Yeah.
But when you find that one reason why you can, that's what you got to cling on to. You know?
All day long.
And it's interesting. I interviewed Nii Shobo recently, and he talked about taking action even if you're not sure. You know, just taking action, putting one foot in front of another. And that's what happened for you. You know, you were young and you knew you wanted to be great. You knew you wanted to be successful. You didn't know exactly how, but you started putting one foot in front of the other. And now here you are. You know, you have an NFL. You go play in college, you have an NFL career. Now you're really successful. And it's like, you've got to take action. And I've said this before on the show, but you can't stumble into something unless you're moving forward. You got to move forward. You've got to take action. I think a lot of people are afraid to set goals because they're afraid not only that they won't achieve them, but that they might change their mind in a week, a month, a year. But it's like, that's okay. Like when new information comes in, adjust your goals, change your timeline, change your action plan, change your what. It's okay. Get something down so you can start moving forward, start taking action. And I do a lot of discovery calls with my people who are on my email list and follow me on social media and whatnot. And I just talk to them about, you know, the 3 areas they'd like to improve most in their life. And they, you know, they tell me, Anthony, is they want clarity. They want focus. They want balance in their life. They want, you know, more time in the day. And it's all the same thing, right? It's about certainly not being clear on what your purpose is. But if you're not clear on that, there's some work to be done there. And you do some work with people. I work with people on that. But take action, right? Create a goal that's meaningful to you and start taking action. So talk about trust your hustle. Tell me more about that. I mean, it sounds like it's something that's really ingrained in your programs and your
It is.
coaching.
It's a process, and it's I'll give you the root of the foundation of it is that this is a few things. I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't have any thought behind it until a couple years ago, and I looked back on my own life and realized where it fit, and it was this kind of culmination point where I had success. I had got to this point where, you know, I'd done all these things, and I was in this gym, and I realized that my heart wasn't fulfilled doing this work in a sense of like teaching people to lose 15 pounds or run a faster 40, and that was it. And I started getting to this point where it felt a little bit unfulfilled. And I remember I'm sitting in a room in April 2014, and I'm holding my mom's right hand, and she takes her final breaths, and she loses her 17-year battle with multiple sclerosis. Oh. And it was this thought where I sat back and like started thinking about really like what am I here to do? Life is so finite, and this woman who physically couldn't do anything, like she left this world, like she took all of her potential with her. And I started thinking like I don't think any of us should do that. I feel like there's got to be a bigger thing that we look at, like you're saying, this reason as to why we keep driving. And it started making me realize like I have a purpose. We all have a purpose to be here. But if we don't trust our hustle to fulfill that, we're going to do just like my mom did, sadly, and pass because we physically can't do anything. And the physical parts, our brain shuts us down. And so what I learned was trust your hustle is actually a structural thing you can look at. The goal for me is to teach people these 3 levels, which is called see, sacrifice, sustain. You've got to first see what you got going on in your life, what you don't see, what you do see, blind spots. You got to figure that out. Then you have to do something, sacrifice something to get success, and then how to sustain that. And the sacrifice is good and bad sacrifice. Some people sacrifice good things, their health, their relationships in the wrong way. And some people don't sacrifice their egos, their pride, their comfort zones. They stick to those things, and they never get success. The big thing with trust your hustle is an actual flow breakdown. And so the goal is to have this faith of knowing. So when I say trust your hustle, the thing is like you, Jim, you know that you're going to do something, you're going to grind, you're going to work, it's going to take place. You just know it. Like I'm sure if I asked you, we sat down and I gave you a challenge, you'd be like, I got it. Even if you can't see the exact end result, you just know, like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm on the way, right? There's just trust. And I know that primarily athletes happen to have this. I don't know why it's ingrained in us, but we learn it, right? It's a learned trait. What it is, it's a faith that's non-religious, non-godly, right? It's a faith is just to know. And when you know, like things become like peaceful. Everything in the world can go crazy, but I still got this. And so I started saying, okay, how do we as people get to this level of faith? And what I started realizing is, well, faith is underlined by belief. And without a belief, you can't have a faith in yourself. And if you think about like faith, it's like you can't have faith without this belief in whatever this thing is. I mean, if you look at our world and society, there's people who run into a building and blow other people up because of their belief and their faith in their own God, right? So what I realized is we got to have belief in ourselves. The problem is most people in the space of what we do and help and share, they just say, you got to believe in yourself, and they walk away. And people say, well, how do we do that? Like it's really no one's broken down. Yeah. And for me, I started looking at a lot of stuff. You got to believe in yourself. And I was like, that sounds good. And I'm amped up. But then I go home. I'm like, all right. And I wake up the next morning, like, what do I do now? So I did more research. I'm like, what underlies belief? And what I found was trust underlies belief. If you trust someone or something, you'll believe in it. So if you have a best friend or a mom or a spouse, and they say, hey, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow, 9 a.m. to get you to the airport by 10. You're going to believe them if you trust them. If you don't trust them, you won't believe them. So that's an external factor. But we as human beings, for some reason, we're always beating ourselves up. And we pull away and basically chip away at our internal trust of ourselves. So we don't trust our abilities to do stuff. Therefore, we don't believe in ourselves. Therefore, we can't have a faith in ourselves. And so what ends up happening is we focus on the wrong things. So when I say trust your hustle, the goal is, how do you simply develop the trust? How do you start to get to the point where your focus shifts from the things you're not good at to the things you are good at, and literally start developing this internal belief in your abilities? Because if you look at, say you've taken 10 actions towards something, and 2 of them failed. For some reason, we always look at those 2. Like we're only focused on these 2 because we didn't win there. But those 2, honestly, aren't the majority. It's the 8. And what we do is we focus on the 8. We figure out what those 8 are, and we start really designing a life around how we operate with those 8 and how those things move. Because that's the C phase. Then we're going to say, what are we going to sacrifice in our life to make sure that these 8 are the ones we can duplicate over and over? And it's going to be sometimes the way we work, the way we see things, perspectives, habits, systems, tools, non-motivational stuff like actual structural change. And what happens is you start getting more and more wins, more successes. And naturally you say, oh, I can do this. You trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the more you have this innate belief in your ability. So somebody says, hey, can you do that? Yeah, I can hit that weight. I can run that fast. I can win that match, right? Okay, I got this. And then after a while, it gets to the point where somebody questions you and you have this almost borderline arrogant, confident faith in yourself. And I think we need to have that as humans. So many people don't. They have the complete opposite, and they almost feel like it's bad to believe that highly in yourself. Like I love who I am as a human, but not so much that I put anybody else down. I want to elevate myself and then elevate you with me to the same level. But it's because I got to this place of understanding there's a faith I have in my abilities to continue to keep moving, to make my life whatever I want my life to be. And that's what I share with people.
Man, that's powerful. That's great stuff. I'm taking notes furiously as you talk here. I actually tweeted out a few weeks ago that it just kind of came to a realization at one point. I'm like, I fail at achieving most of the goals that I actually set for myself.
Yeah.
But the failure is almost irrelevant because I achieved so much in the process, right? So if I sat there and just focus on the failure, then it's like, yeah, I lose that trust in myself. I lose that faith in myself.
Yeah.
But you're saying that, you don't look at the failure. You look at, and failure is a big part of my brand. Everybody knows that listens that I talk about failure every episode. You're saying you stop and look at what's working. And it's interesting. A few weeks ago, I was struggling just sort of, with the growth of my podcast and a couple of things with the business here. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of bummed out. And I said, and I hit the pause button and I said, what's working? And identified a bunch of things that were working.
Yeah.
And not only did it give me confidence, it gave me clarity. It gave me clarity on what I need to be focusing on. So it's exactly the process that you're talking about right there is finding what's working and replicating it.
That's it. It's really that simple. It's right there in front of us. So we rarely ever focus. You ever heard about the Dove study, the one with the women?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So Dove did a study where they had a sketch artist bring in 2 people, and one person described themselves, what they look like to the sketch artist, and the other person described that other person, right? So they're basically, I think they're friends. Yeah. They would then come in later on and show them both the sketches. And the person who wrote a sketch of themselves or described themselves, it was a horrendous photo. They described all their blemishes and flaws. Yeah. The person who was their friend had a beautiful picture. They described all the beautiful pieces of the person. So inherently, it showed us we don't even think highly of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so odd. And I get that we have to see the negatives sometimes to work on them, but you can gain so much of understanding how to duplicate better assets or better experiences if you look at what you did do well at and why you did well at it. And then the focus shifts and then your confidence shifts. And I think that's the biggest starting point. Is earlier you said you have to take action. I know people listening right now are saying, oh, but I don't know how. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm smart enough. It sounds good. Jim can do it. Anthony can do it, but it may not be for me. And it's only because every time you bring that up, they're thinking about the things they did in the past that were failures. and they never look at the positives, because failure 100% is part of it, but you can also reframe that failure. There's actually 6 levels to failure that people don't even realize. But when you understand how failure has these different levels that I've researched and kind of I teach in my programs.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I realized that we have this 6 levels. So the top level, which where a lot of people spend a lot of the time, is called abject failure. And abject failure is like there's no coming back from this. And we shoot ourselves up this high. So imagine you're in a relationship and it fails. And you're like, I'm never going to be in a relationship. I'm not meant to love. No one's going to love me, right? It's abject. It's never going to happen again. And that's the one where a lot of people put simple problems when they don't belong there. Then below that, you have what's called structural failure. Structural failure is things go wrong. It's something that's really bad, but it's fixable. There's hope for it to be okay. It could be anything. It could be, like your car breaks down. Like, oh no, the car broke down, but it could be fixed. I can't drive right now, but if I fix this little thing, it can move again. Okay, cool. Below it, you have glorious failure, which is like, all right, it's falling apart. I'm just going to let this thing burn and walk away and just, let life happen and keep on moving. This is where businesses go down and like, it just happened. Let this thing ride out. Then you have common failure, which is pretty much where it's like why the sorry was created. Hey, I messed up. My bad. Like you run into somebody, you kick their feet when you're walking down an alleyway or something, like, oh, sorry about that. Below that, you have something that's basically called version failure, which is it's like how the iPhone's created. Pretty much I make something and then I'm expecting it to not be 100% perfect, but I'm waiting for the feedback of what's wrong with it so I can make it better. It's a simple failure, but we're used to it. Then you have what's pretty much expected failure, which is like I go out as an athlete when I played football and I knew I was going to mess up every day. I know my coach is going to yell at me. It's expected. And as he yells at me, I get better. What happens for a lot of people is they have something like, an athletic failure, which is going to be an expected failure. You go out to a field, soccer, basketball court, whatever it may be, and you're not perfect. But when the coach yells at you, sometimes people leave that arena and think they're horrible athletes. They're never going to be any good. They're never going to excel. They've taken something that's supposed to be pretty much an expected failure and made it a top abject failure. And this stops them dead in their tracks. And when you have an abject failure, you start thinking in your head, like you ever heard of Carol Dweck's growth mindset? Sure. So it's like you take that growth and the fixed mindset, and they take that fixed mindset and they bump it to the top and say, you know what, I'm done. And so what I look at is when I talk to a lot of my clients, I say, hey, what have you tried that you failed at? And they'll explain to me, and they'll literally almost 90% of it's between structural and abject failure. And when it should have been like a common failure, like I just messed up, I'm sorry. And life went on. Like they said something wrong to somebody, hurt somebody's feelings, or they made a mistake in their business and they didn't make the right investment, or maybe they did something wrong with the client. It's pretty much a like, I'm sorry kind of thing, but they beat themselves up and they shoot to the top. Because I think that we sometimes want other people to know that, that we don't think it's okay for us to fail. So we'll, in a sense, demean ourselves for the appeasement of others. So we'll put something at a high level so other people look at us like, oh, okay, they made a mistake. They know they made a mistake. They get it. And so if we literally will bury ourselves to be viewed by other people in a better way. And by doing that, it stops us. So these failures that should have been at like a 1 or a 2, they're all of a sudden they're a 6 or a 5, and people can't move. And it'll hold them for their entire lives sometimes. They'll go their entire life thinking they're not good, not smart, not capable, because they took one failure that was a simple one and made it way too high.
Yeah. So, man, so interesting. So what I've found is that it's really helpful to know yourself, right? To do the work, to understand, to get a deep understanding of yourself. Because if I'm the kind of person who puts an expected failure in the category of abject failure, I need to know that. If that's sort of part of my psyche, if that was, it's how I'm wired, or that was built into me through my upbringing, or whatever the case may be, if you learn that, if you figure that out, you go, okay, I feel like an abject failure right now, but let me zoom out, let me back up, let me look at this. And all that really happened was I didn't get the job. I went to what was that?
Oh, my phone makes noises.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. I heard you. By the way, for the listener, Anthony was actually cutting the grass a few minutes ago while he was doing this interview. This guy's talented, man. No, he's actually outside doing this interview. But But you got to know yourself. So the deeper you know yourself, the more powerful it is. So several years ago, I took something called a BSA, this assessment that a mentor of mine administers, and he's a very high power performance consultant and consults with CEOs and professional teams and whatnot. And anyway, he did this with me, and it was really interesting for me to learn myself and to know myself, you get this 10-page report back, and it's just really powerful to know yourself, know how you take criticism, how you deal with failure internally, so that whenever you understand these things, you can make those adjustments. You can hedge on different things in your life, because, if you're the type of person like me, I need all the information. For example, I need all the information before I make a decision. I need more information. I got to read another book. I got to talk to another professional about it. And now that I know that, I make decisions quicker. I'm more decisive than I was before, because I know that that's a weakness of mine. It's a strength in certain areas, but it's also a weakness. So sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to make a decision now, because you know what? I know that this is kind of one of those things where I'm just going to want to read another book before I make a decision. It was like starting this podcast. It was one of those things like, you know what? I need to, maybe I need to take another course on how to start a podcast, or talk to one more person. It's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm doing it.
Just go.
And when you kind of understand yourself like that, it's especially when it comes to failure, it's really helpful. And it's interesting, your upbringing versus, let's say, I just saw a video of the Spanx CEO of Spanx, Jan Singer. Mm-hmm. She talked about her upbringing, and her dad would always celebrate their failures, literally celebrate failure. And I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like the word failure, or think nothing's a failure unless you actually give up. And yeah, I get it. It's all a matter of semantics. But she would say that her dad would ask her and her brother if they failed today, and if they said, or what they failed at, and if they said they failed at this or that or the other thing, or a test or sports or whatever, he would celebrate it. And that was her vision and understanding of failure. So it was okay. It's not abject failure. It's an expected failure. And I love that. So for the listener, I am going to have this in the action plan. So if you go to jimharshawjr.com/action, I'm going to have those 6 levels of failure that Anthony talked about, as well as some of the great quotes and information that he's talked about so far. I'm going to have all that in the action plan.
I actually have that all written down. I mean, actually, it's part of my coursework. I can send you the workshop, like the PDF I use for it.
Yeah, that'd be great. You want to? Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I will include that. So for the listener, I'll include that in the action plan as well. So there you go. You're going to get some good stuff, some really good stuff.
Yeah.
Anthony, so we talk a lot about failure. I talk to all my guests about failure. I love to hear about a moment that you failed. And I see adversity and failure as different things. Adversity is something maybe outside of your control. Failure is something that if you feel like is my fault, I controlled it, I wasn't, like you said, good enough, smart enough, capable enough.
Yeah.
Tell us about a time that you experienced that of a failure, and how the sort of hopelessness and despair and the self-doubt that created, and how you overcame that. And maybe, and I don't see, obviously your upbringing it wasn't a failure. I get it. You were born into the family you were born into. You were born into that situation. But was there a time that you absolutely failed? And can you share with the listener how you kind of worked through that? Maybe it was in business, maybe it was in sports.
It's a lot of them. I think the one that would probably be beneficial to people now is, and I'm assuming who's listening based on your audience, is I got done with first off, there's a couple of failures. One was sports. I mean, I got cut, tore my shoulder. Like, I got cut twice, and then I tore my shoulder in the end, my final year with the Steelers. And all my teammates went and got a Super Bowl ring, and I was sitting at home with a torn shoulder. And so that was a portion of failure. But the one that I would say really was like this point of despair is I had, I come home. I already lost my first career in football, and I opened a gym. And, I figured in my head, like, I'm going to be great at this. I've got my degree in kinesiology. I played in the NFL. I have the money to open this gym and make it look nice and run well. And everybody in the world should want to train with me because, I'm Anthony Trucks, and I got, this good ego. And then I'm sitting there, and it's, I want to say April in 2010. 2010 in April. And I'm sitting in my gym, and I'd had just 2 guys. One was a manager, one was a sales guy. And all of a sudden, this motorcycle comes rumbling up to the front of my door. Some guy in this, handlebar mustaches and his leather jacket gets off, and he has this thing in his hand, and he just kind of walks in. And I have no idea who this person is, and he hands me an envelope. I grab the envelope, and I open it up, and he walks out. And inside of it is basically I've been served by my landlord, and I had owed them at this point now $16,000. I had $4,000 in my bank. I had 2 weeks to pay it, or I'm going to be evicted. I've put all my money into this gym. I mean, my NFL money's pretty much gone. I've dumped a lot of money in this gym. And I'm looking at my entire future like I'm about to go bankrupt. I have 3 children. I have a wife, like, I have a life that I'm trying to keep, and I'm also like the gym owner guy. So I'm at this point where I have to find a way. And at the gym, I'm maybe making $7,000 a month tops with the people that are
total
around.
revenue for the gym.
Oh yeah, that's it, and that's before paying the power bill to keep the lights on, paying my trainers. Like I hadn't even paid myself. I couldn't pay myself, and I'm sitting here like, oh, who am I? I'm this, I'm a sham. I'm not who I supposedly look to the rest of the world to be, of this gym owner. And so at there's points where sometimes we want to hide that we're not doing perfect. And I sat there and I remember like I'm sitting up in the middle of the night. It's 4 a.m. I'm staring at the ceiling and I have this cold sweat going on. I have like this pit in my stomach, like this ball in the pit of my stomach just eating away at me. And I'm completely just unsettled and unhappy. And so I am now, in my mind, I'm a failure at business. I'm not a good businessman. I don't know how to run a business. I'm a fake. I'm a fraud. I'm not good at what I do. And I'm literally just beating myself up and borderline in tears as I'm thinking, how am I going to feed my kids, pay my mortgage? How can I do this? What am I doing? And that was a moment I had like really look back at who is Anthony Trucks? What has Anthony experienced? What are my assets as a human? And I'm just sitting like, I've got to find a way out of this. I can't just give up and bury this thing away. And to be honest, most people, they would bottle up and bury it away. The easy thing for me to do would be walk away, try to find a way to get a lawyer, because like, oh, there's no way I can make that money in 2 weeks. There's no way. I've never made that much. It's not going to happen. And I started realizing like, I've got to come out of this hole. And so as odd as it may seem, I spent my last $4,000 and I hired a consultant to tell me what's wrong. And it was
wow.
At the time, everybody's like, why would you do that? And to be honest, it was like my gut feeling, because I'm like, all right, whatever Anthony's figured out to this point and on his own way has not worked. So why am I going to continue to keep doing what I'm doing the way I'm doing it? It makes no sense. It was like, that was this aha moment for me. Like, okay, how did I get here? Well, it's because I did this thing that Anthony does, and whatever Anthony was doing was not working for business. And so I figured, why not find somebody who's good at this? And I think this is one of the things I'm real big on coaches and why I'm a coach. I'm like, look, I don't have the answers to everything, but I do have a different perspective than you do. And it's not that I'm better. I just see it from like a different angle. I've taken 5 steps to the right, and I see it differently. And so basically the guy sat down and explained out to me what was going on with the business. In doing so, it allowed me to have better aha moments to see how I could approach the landlord to help me get an extension. And what I did was I was able to navigate some of the next few months and actually grow the business simultaneously. So I was able to, within 3 months from that, I was able to get the landlord paid. I was able to get the gym to where we were making 3 months later $27,000 a month. And I was able to, for the next year, move to a bigger gym and actually have a big thriving business. I was making 6 figures, traveling the world, consulting, all this kind of stuff. The fact that people know me now is only because I kept that running then. So if you're not even on this podcast with me, if in that moment, in the darkness, in my house at 4 a.m, I have a simple thought of, Anthony, you're not perfect. Go get some help. That's why I'm here. And so at that point, like I was at a dark place. Overall, you look at it, I failed. I really did. On paper, I failed, but I fixed it. And that's what most people don't do. They don't look at the fact that you can actually fix it.
And I love the fact that you said that you hired a consultant. You looked outside of yourself. And
yeah,
there's so much value in our experiences, and it's all pretty much athletes that listen to this, former athletes. Mm-hmm. And there's so much value in that experience as an athlete. We've got the work ethic, we've got the discipline, and sometimes we've got the bullheadedness. And this is probably even more especially in the in individual sports like wrestling or swimming or track. It's like it's all on me, and we don't always work great as a team, but it's like you got to look outside of yourself, and find that help. And you actually invested a lot of money in the last bit of your money into getting help. I mean, you're obviously good enough and smart enough and capable enough, but there's more information out there. There's someone else that can help. We have that as an athlete. We have that. We have coaches, right? We have all kinds of coaches. We have coaches and nutritionists and sports psychologists and trainers, et cetera, all these people around us, right?
All the time.
But now it's like in the real world, the stakes are higher. Before it was sports. I mean, when you're playing professional sports, it's your livelihood. It's a little different. But when you're in high school and college, it's just a sport really to some extent. But now it's like you've got your family, you've got your kids, like everybody's depending on. There's so much on the line. Invest in yourself, find a coach, find a mastermind group. And for the listener, I've got a 10-page ebook on how to start your own mastermind group. Just if you go to the JimHarshawJr.com/action, you'll get access to that in addition to the action plan for this. It's awesome. I mean, I will never be without a mastermind group again in my life.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
You need it. You have to have the perspective you don't see. I think the hard part for a lot of us, when I got back, I'm like, oh, these are civilians. They're not athletes. They don't know. But the way I look at it, if anybody's on this line, is we went to school. Like we got done with high school, went to school, and we spent years developing our internal intangible skills and not the professional skills, because we were just getting used to, getting on a mat. If for you or for me, it was getting on the field. Yeah. But then we entered the world where these people, I say these people, everybody else has been in the workforce for me, it was, 8 years. I'm 8 years behind. These people have been doing this way longer than me. They have the technical skill. Now, here's the unique thing. When you learn that technical skill that they teach you, the intangible skills they don't have allow you to excel past them so much faster as an athlete. Because it's like they can't push past the internal like battles and failures when it comes to the head. And it always comes to a head. But for me, if I can get the skill they have in terms of that asset and add it to what I have, it's tough for them to get what I got. We do so much better as athletes. That's why people love hiring athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Anthony, this is what I want to know now. So a guy like you, I love your energy. I love your passion. I know you've got some habits that you do that probably set you apart from others. I mean, is there a habit you do on a regular basis? Maybe it's daily, maybe it's weekly, whatever the case might be. Maybe it's a morning routine or whatever. Can you share with us a little bit about your day and any habits that you do that sort of set you up for success? Yeah.
I mean, the simplest things I do, here's the single word, which I think gives me any kind of success, is consistency. It's the foundational, anchor point of my entire life. Whether it's being consistent in my habits or consistent in the person I am, consistent to my word, whatever that is, it's a humongous thing that I find sets me apart, because most people just aren't. My overall habits are in the morning. I like to get my brain and my body going. So I usually get up in the morning, I'll catch a workout, and I'll meditate. Whether it's meditation first or workout afterwards, depends on how my day is set up, but that's pretty much as structured as I like to be. Most people say I got to get up, I got to go here and do X, then I got to do Y, then I got to do Z. That's just too neurotic for me. And if I'm away from home and I can't do that, it drives me insane. So I like to I'll catch a quick workout, do some meditation, I get on with my day. And the way I start my day, I'll check my emails and I'll check my messages real quick, and then I'll get into actually contacting people and talking to them. It's pretty much how my day rolls. But overall, the biggest habit I have is I think about the fact that I not only want to be consistent, but that I have to be consistent. And that allows me to choose the things I do with my life, whether it's the people I get in contact with, the promises I make to people, when I say yes, when I say no. And because I take that into account, I'm a person that all we have is our word. I believe in whoever you are, all you have is your word. So if I say I'm going to get on this thing, I think with me and you, we had this call and I dropped the ball. I don't think you know how much that ate me up. I really was I don't like being the guy that doesn't follow through with his word. And it's not this pride thing or ego thing, but I feel like so many human beings don't do that. That one, I never want to be that person, but it also sets me apart from everybody else. And it's why I get to work with people and they enjoy me, because I'm easy to work with, because if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to get it done. And that goes with my kids loving their father. That goes with my, the people I'm with, my best friends. Everybody who's around me, they realize that I'm the guy that will do what I say I'm going to do. And in that, it allows me to be smart enough to choose business projects, choose interviews, choose things I pursue the right way, because it all builds me. Because what happens is we want to grow and be successful, but we want to take everything on in the world. But then you take everything on, and if you do anything poorly, that's also how you're seen. That one single thing to somebody, it's just who you are. And they haven't seen the other 5 million things you've done. It's that single thing sometimes that'll condemn you. So when I say I want to be consistent, it also is a thing of I want to be consistent. So decisions you make every day have got to be based around, can you be consistent with this thing you've chosen?
It's interesting. A couple of years ago, I read a blog post by Seth Godin, and he talked about consistency, and he was really talking about content in writing, for example, writing a blog. And he said, if you just take a day off and you write a crappy blog post and your heart's not in it and you just kind of cut corners, so whoever comes across that post as your first post, that's the first time they interact with you, then that's their impression. Doesn't matter if you wrote 5,000 other posts that are awesome and off the charts. If you write one that's terrible, that's people's first. That's their first impression of you. And that consistency is so important. And I think it was Jocko Willink, I think maybe said it, but discipline equals freedom. Discipline equals freedom. When you're consistent, when you're disciplined, you're able to have the freedom, the financial freedom, or the freedom of just having good health, or your families and the relationships are in the right place. Yeah. Discipline equals freedom. We just talked about you before your show. How the freedom of lifestyle that you have because of that consistency.
That's what it is.
So how about for the listener? So they like to get an action item, but what can they do? What can the listener do in the next, let's say, 24 to 48 hours to really start moving towards their goals? One habit or one action that they can take in the short term to start seeing some results.
I like this. This is the one I tell people it doesn't make sense. Make an imperfect plan. That's what I tell you. Make an imperfect plan. No one's going to take action until they have a plan of what to do, right? I literally can't tell you, hey, go jump off a cliff. What? Right? Okay. Here's a first step. Plan out by getting a parachute first, then find a good cliff that's high enough, then you jump off. There's a plan in place. What people try to do is they are scared of action. We're all literally like, I get scared of action sometimes, but I've got to the point of realize, okay, one, the action creates clarity, which is necessary. So I've got to take action, but I must have a plan. But we want to make the perfect plan, and that stops us. It's a good way to protect ourselves with saying, like the perfectionist mindset. Oh, it's not perfect, so I don't want to take the action until I know it's me perfect. So I tell people, make the most imperfect plan you can. Not make it garbage, but imperfect has massive levels. Make the best plan you can, then perfectly follow it and perfect it along the way. That's it. You make a plan. Whatever the plan is, just make the plan. It's never going to be perfect because life is what happens between our plans, but we're never going to get a chance to really be perfectionists and perfect something until we're moving. So if you're a person out there saying, I want to take action on something, what do I do? Create the perfect plan you can right now, like whatever you can. It's as perfect as you can make it, realizing it is actually imperfect, and then you take action on that. And as you get farther along, you'll get the benefit of perfecting it by learning, adjusting, modifying, and continuing on that same journey. And now you'll separate yourself from 99.9% of the population who will always sit back and say, oh, the plan's not perfect, and never take any movement.
Great advice. There's so many ways to validate exactly what you said. I had a man who came up to me after a speaking engagement recently, and he said, Jim, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And I looked at him, my head sideways. I'm like, I don't know about that. My dad would tell me otherwise, man. My dad would tell me, like, you do something, do it right. But it's like, he's like, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly because otherwise you're not going to do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Just take action, put one foot in front of the other, take the leap. And actually, matter of fact, the founder of LinkedIn said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. Right? I mean, check it. This is LinkedIn. They were just bought for, the IPO a few years ago for billions of dollars. Like, yeah. I mean, if you're not embarrassed by the first version, if you're not confident in your first try, your first attempt, if you don't screw up or look back on your first attempt at doing something or achieving something, you're not a little embarrassed. It means you waited too long. Guess what? Most people are waiting too long.
Yeah.
Great.
I agree.
Great advice, Anthony. So how about this? How about a favorite book, book, or maybe a couple books that you might be able to recommend?
So besides Trust Your Hustle, which is my book,
and by the way, we'll have a link to that. We'll have that in the action plan as well.
Cool. Yes. One of the books I really love, which I think was the introduction to me in the personal development, was the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it's a good. It's not a very, I would say, applicable book. It doesn't say exactly how to apply it, but the concepts are great. My favorite chapters are seek first, understand, then be understood. I don't know why it just resonates with me. Me too. But it was this foundational thing of like understanding not only of a single person, but of people. Once you seek to understand people and they get that you understand them, like you have so much more like headway in your world because you can operate better. That was a great book I read. After that, I love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Just the way that we look at like finding meaning in moments in the now, as opposed to just riding through your life and not knowing what's going on, or putting false meaning. I think this one statement I learned last year, which I really love, is no moment has any meaning except for the meaning that we place upon it. That's it. So it's like literally like if I'm in a car and somebody cuts me off, I could hate that person because they're being rude. But what if they're on the way because their wife is pregnant? Like who knows? It's just what we place this bad meaning on it. And what happens is the way that we feel the world, like the way we put things out is how we actually experience it. And so those are some of the books that I enjoy reading because of the perspectives it gave me.
Man, this is an awesome interview. I can't wait. I can't wait. I listen to all these twice because I come back and I go through it and I create the action plan. So for a listener, you might want to go back and read this or listen to this one again. This is a good one. So I'm going to have a bunch of this stuff in the action plan, jimharshawjr.com/action. Anthony, where can the listener find out more about you, maybe learn about Renew University, which is your program, and just talk a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and how we can find you? Yeah,
so if you want to just get a hold of me, I'm at anthonytrucks.com or facebook.com/AnthonyTrucks. I do a video every night called a Nightly 90. Tonight's like 519 straight days.
Wow.
I also do a Lunch and Learn, a live stream every day, 6 days a week. Renew University is a program that is it's an online and live event. Actually, the live event is here August 19th. But what it is essentially the concept is we as people, we want to get better. And it's more so a business-focused concept, but the word renew means to make effective for an additional period. And it's really saying, what do we got to do as people, which is the technician and the tools and techniques we utilize in business to become better for the next phase. And so what I do is I work through a lot of different things that we as people struggle with to get our businesses move forwards or our aspirational ideas move forwards, which is having hard conversations, the ego, the procrastination that we have, lack of confidence, self-esteem. We work through those things, and then we come live and really build up a really cool community, a great network, and we learn all the tools, whether it's marketing, how to write a book, maybe it's how to create a course and put up online. You want to learn how to speak on stages, online or offline. Like I bring 10 amazing speakers in to teach all these areas that I, in 1 year, spent literally $257,000 on learning, and for the people I have actually worked with personally. And I realized that a lot of people want to venture into something new, but they're just not internally prepared because they don't think they're capable. That whole trust your hustle concept comes in. And they also don't know what steps to take of who to reach out to. What kind of coach do I need, and what order should I put it in, and when should I take a step, and how should it look so I don't mess things up legally as well. And so I brought it all into one room and said, this is exactly what that's for. And I created a course around how to develop the person behind the scenes that utilizes those tools and techniques.
Great stuff. Again, for the listener, I'll have all this in the action plan for you. How to follow him, social media, how to check out his website and Renew University and everything else. So, Anthony, thanks so much for coming on the show.
You're very welcome, man. I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it.
Likewise. And for the listener, until next time, just like when you were an athlete, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success. Wrestling with Success is a member of the Athlete on Fire podcast network. Check out all of our shows at athleteonfire.com/podcast.